My article today keeps it hyper local here in my home state. This is by Green Market Report. And while I sometimes like to criticize him, John is doing a pretty good job over there with a steady drumbeat of news stories. And so, hot off the press today is one about California cannabis and hemp. So without further ado, California cannabis business organizations raise flags over proposed hemp supply chain integration. A measure would task the California Department of Cannabis Control with also overseeing intoxicating hemp goods. A pair of cannabis trade organizations in California that represent hundreds of small businesses held a press conference on Thursday to sound the alarm over a proposed amendment that they said is an existential threat to much of the legal marijuana supply chain in the state. A trio of representatives from the Origins Council, Coleman over there holding it down, and Supernova Women, which speak for small marijuana farmers and social equity companies, respectively, broke down a 44-page proposal that has been circulating in political circles in Sacramento since June as an amendment to Assembly Bill 2223, which was originally intended as new rules for hemp businesses. It's also reportedly backed by Governor Gavin Newsom. The bill began as a new attempt to crack down on intoxicating hemp products that were legalized nationally in 2018 by the federal farm bill. That industry has been producing competitors for state legal marijuana companies increasingly across the country. But now, with the newly authored amendment set to be introduced in the coming days, much of the state licensed marijuana sector could be poised to lose out, the trade organization said, because the bill would exacerbate an uneven playing field between hemp and cannabis, with most advantages weighted towards hemp operators. The challenge that we would face should this move forward in terms of competition with both in-state and out-of-state hemp producers is significant in terms of market share, said Janine Coleman, the executive director of Origins Council. It's an existential crisis for us. As producers, we're already facing an existential crisis as it is, with the regulated supply chain and market dynamics being what they are. Coleman, along with Supernova co-founder Amber Center and Humboldt County Growers Alliance Policy Director Russ Gordon, said that the amendment emerged from Newsom's office ostensibly as part of an urgent need to do something about the intoxicating hemp goods proliferating in regular retail outlets like gas stations and convenience stores, as opposed to the highly regulated dispensaries where legal marijuana is sold. But in an apparent rush to act, the Newsom administration is supporting a policy that they said would require intoxicating hemp goods to be overseen by the same regulatory agency as marijuana, the State Department of Cannabis Control, potentially overloading the office. B, open up regulated interstate cannabis commerce, but only for hemp products and not for state legal marijuana products, setting a new legal precedent that marijuana farmers fear they'd be left out of, obviously. C, give interstate import and export exclusivity to cannabis distributors, artificially creating some winners in the cannabis trade while disadvantaging others. Newsom's press office did not respond to a request for comment Friday about the supposed amendment. Coleman, Center, and Gordon said that the original version of AB 2223, which is still in the legislative committee, has only a few weeks to be amended and passed before the state legislature adjourns at the end of August. That means either the wholesale overhaul will become a reality very quickly, or it'll get pushed out altogether until next year by lawmakers. Center predicted, however, that if the amendment is approved and the bill ultimately signed into law, the inequities between large and small operators that already exist in the industry would be exacerbated. Particularly, the three all said, because some multi-state operators, such as Curaleaf, are jumping into the intoxicating hemp goods sector and likely would want to capitalize on a market the size of California. This is not something that I see small cannabis businesses being able to capitalize on. Small brands, black and brown folks, women-owned companies, all of that, said Centers, arguing that smaller companies typically don't have the money to easily start up a brand new hemp-based products line. I just don't think that many of them who are already in the cannabis are going to be picking up the ball to run in the hemp category. Okay, so I have some thoughts. I'm going to hold fire. I hand this off to my esteemed colleagues. I'd like to hear what you guys think and feel about the article I shared today.
I mean, everybody's.
I just want to see hemp being used for its actual uses, like packing material, building material, oil, rope, and as a replacement for petrochemicals.
I'm with you 100%. I always felt like that should have been part of Trump's agenda in regards to building back America and everything. That they should have invested so much money into infrastructure for that. That would have been such a win for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think it also could be very helpful for some of these farmers that are failing. I mean, like, honestly, I hate to say it, but if your weed's not selling, then, this gives you an opportunity to grow something that's going to possibly be less regulated, that's going to give you, money and help kind of save your farm. Also, we can do a lot for deforestation. We can do a lot for the environment. We can do a lot for a lot of things. And hemp was one of our largest cash crops for a long time. So let's bring that back and see what we can do with hempcrete and things like that. So I know that it might suck to bite the bullet and switch to hemp, but plenty of people have gone to CBD when they didn't make it in cannabis. So,
Yeah, I think this is another. I talk to CEOs. We do SB 34 a lot with them, and many of them are saying they're moving as much of their production to hemp as they can. It's just a financially better model for them. So I think Janine has a right to be concerned. I think Origins Council has a right to be concerned. I think the hard truth that nobody is talking about is the environmentalists do not want most of these growers growing where they're growing. And that's just the hard truth. You look at Humboldt and those Mendocino, those areas, we've been trying to get a proposition on the ballot. And one of the biggest forces against a different ballot measure are the environmentalists.
Interesting. That would include the Coastal Commission too, along with that too, right, Sean?
I'm talking about the NGOs. Literally, we have quite a few foundations that have bazillions of dollars, and they control a lot of our politics. And that's beyond just environmentalists, but they are a big part in California. The unions and the environmentalists are the two big groups standing in the way of cannabis reform.
So here's my thoughts, y'all. There's no question that cannabis is overregulated, hemp is underregulated, and that hemp is cannabis's cousin. It just has a little less fencing around its field. And to Sean's point about that conflict between sort of the pure environmentalists versus environmentalists who are pro-cannabis and the impact that has in legacy regions that were chose for their remoteness and the security a farmer could have versus a flat field in Salinas or Adelanto. I just want to point out something. I took a little notes at the state fair last 2 weeks ago. I haven't shared this publicly, but I think it's relevant in terms of the pushback that cannabis farmers get from environmentalists who may not understand the opportunity that cannabis represents in terms of economic revitalization for agrarian regions and those areas that represent the Emerald Triangle. In the state fair, 8 out of 19 indoor flower winners were from Sonoma County, and 4 were from the true Emerald Triangle of Humboldt, Mendocino, and Trinity. In mixed light, 5 were from Sonoma County. Another 5 were from the Emerald Triangle's Humboldt. And that was out of 19 submissions. In the outdoor submissions for the California State Fair, there were 23 submissions. 11 of them were from the Emerald Triangle, and 7 of them were from Sonoma County. So from a pure land use perspective, there's a reasonable argument that those regions are antiquated and not necessarily ideally positioned for scale production. But in terms of the winners and the way in which people are optimizing the genetic expression of existing cultivars, they're still cleaning the clock of any other region in California. Final point I want to make around cannabis and hemp. I think Origins Council is doing noble work. I think they are trying to be a little bit protectionist for farmers who have already taken the time and the cost to have a cannabis permit. I don't think that that's a bad form of protectionism. And I think that the challenge I have is if the hemp that was going to be consumed in California was created in California, then I sort of tend to sort of lean towards what Jenny said around, like, it's time for operators to pivot and to find those profitable pockets within the opportunities that do exist. The challenge is that the way this is written, hemp-derived cannabinoids created in other states where produces revenue and taxes and jobs in those other states would now be allowed to be shipped into California and sold in dispensaries. And so I do think that that's an unfair advantage for those who want to participate in the largest regulated cannabis market in the world, but don't have to stand up the costs that come with creating products in this state.